Welcome to the Verdin Verdict Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verdin. We have another LSU football spring practice highlight video, but we're going to do some things differently today. I'm going to show you at the beginning the DB footage. I know everybody wants to see it. We're going to move on to the wide receiver depth afterwards, and then we're going to close it off with the scrimmage that we usually start things off with. But you see the starting cornerbacks, nothing's changed. Ashton Stamps, P.J. Woodland, these two guys are looking very, very good in tandem. Now, I will say very early in the spring, you still got Zy Alexander on recovery. You still got guys like J.K. Johnson who could potentially make his presence felt in this room, as you see him right there. Taking a look at Corey Raymond, getting hands-on with the DBs now. I think that this room is something that has completely changed in comparison to last season. You got a lot of people worrying about the coverage or the transitional period from LSU under Matt House to LSU under Blake Baker. I think that transitional period is going to be very brief. It honestly might only last spring and summer camp. I think going into the fall, you're not going to see, NFL caliber first round DBs across the board, but you're going to have a lot of talent get exposed. I mean, just a simple fact that somebody like P.J. Woodland in his first year as an early enrollee can already be picked from the crowd. Now let's go toward the safety room. You got Sage Ryan getting moved into a more comfortable position where he's able to just play lights out. That's another thing we talked about him, about this past interview with him. We were talking comfort and scheme and just being able to play to your strong suits. Like, you can play corner as a DB, well-rounded player, well-rounded athlete, but all be all, you want to get your guys in the spots that are going to best complement them and their skill set. And especially, let's talk about Major Burns too. Moving to the star position, getting him closer to the line, closer to the action, getting him out of the space, getting him in a spot where he can be more aggressive. That's going to pay dividends for this LSU defense. There's a lot of things that you're going to see different, but the fact that things are changing is going to 100% boost everything across the board. They're doing a lot more hands-on press work. You see Jordan Gilbert getting active here, but P.J. Woodland has been the star of spring camp. He has taken everybody by notice. Everyone is putting attention on number 27, and I think that's going to be your most underrated player and your player to watch for LSU going into next season. And, if you would have told me a couple months ago into this Blake Baker hiring period that we would be saying something like that, I'm not saying I wouldn't have believed you. I would have been very surprised. I would have thought that a underrated, huge player that stole attention in spring camp would be a receiver, maybe a running back like Caleb Jackson. But no, P.J. Woodland. And I'm going to give credit where credit's due for guys like Jordan Gilbert, Major Burns, and even Ashton Stamps. They're stepping up. They're guys that have returned. But let's talk about the wide receivers, the depth. Everybody wants to know. Kyron Lacy, of course, he's wide receiver 1. If you have questions about the drops, questions about, his star capabilities, I just want to point out that the fact that he's wide receiver 1 is very different than the past Kyron Lacy's we saw where he'd be a wide receiver 3 or 2 or what have you. He's the main guy now. He'll get the main guy touches. And I think with that, with his role growing, so will his, statistics. So will his bag, so to speak. So will the fans' appreciation for him in the offense, I believe. And, of course, you got Chris Hilton, who has been wide receiver 2 all throughout camp. I'll say Chris Hilton Jr. is my number 2 in terms of who stole the spring football show for LSU. He definitely is up there in terms of people that have been performing lights out. You expect guys like Kyron Lacy to ball. You expect guys like, I would even throw Aaron Anderson out there. But Chris Hilton was somebody that kind of flew under the radar for a couple of people. But this season, he will make his presence felt. He'll make a very good name for himself, I believe. And you see Cortez Hankton getting these guys in, doing some moves off of a defender, trying to get them used to creating space while they're on the go. Whether it be a quick cut in a route or whether it be stopping and going. They got a couple of different moves that they're working on. And, I mean, Cortez Hankton, he knows how to get his guys in a scheme that is going to be able to get them explosive yards. And another thing with Cortez Hankton watching his guys through drills like this is he's really getting to feel out the depth chart. And the depth chart is something that everybody wants to talk about. Who's wide receiver 3? Hell, who's wide receiver 4? Who are the guys that they're going to lean on next year when Kyron and Chris are tired? I think number 1 in terms of the wide receiver 3 spot is going to be Aaron Anderson. I've been saying this, been beating this drum. I'm going to keep beating it. I think Aaron Anderson is a high-level athlete. He's been performing phenomenal. But, with the transfer of someone like C.J. Daniels from Liberty, number 4, you get a little bit of uneasiness. You're like, well, is Aaron going to take wide receiver 3? Then you got Kyle Parker. Kyle Parker could come out and steal the show and get his own reps. But C.J. Daniels has such a good frame and build that I think he'll be a very, very, very awkward matchup for a lot of people to throw out there. So the fact that you can have an Aaron Anderson who's a smaller slot receiver, and then you can throw out someone like C.J. Daniels and completely throw off the defensive schemes, that'll be exciting. I think that that's going to be something they're going to have to keep in their back pocket and utilize all season long. Now, let's move on to the thing everybody wants to see. Offensive scrimmage, no defense. But look at Joe Sloan. Chirping the boys, chirping the ones. He's not liking what he's seeing. He's holding them accountable. I've been liking seeing that from Joe Sloan all season, all spring. This is going to be a good offensive coordinator fit because he's not afraid to tell him how it is. And quite frankly, he's helped build one of the more prolific schemes in LSU's offense in recent memory. So I feel like this has been, a pretty exciting experiment. And I can only see where this is going. I can see the upward trajectory. I can see the way that this offense has been molding around Garrett Nussmeier. And honestly, and the backups. The backups in the twos with A.J. Swann have not been looking bad either. Look at this ball from Nussmeier. They're dropping it in the bucket to Aaron Anderson. Get ready to see that all season long. If you don't put Aaron Anderson in the wide receiver 3 spot, you don't want to score points. I think Nussmeier and Aaron's chemistry is off the charts. But quite frankly, you can put any receiver with Nussmeier and see fireworks. That Chris Hilton here getting utilized, getting some touches, getting some grabs. That's going to be something you're going to see all season long as well. And it'll be very interesting to see how they pair Chris Hilton with Kyron Lacy in terms of route combinations and in plays and whatnot. Will it be similar to Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors? Will it be a little different? Because they're different players. They kind of got different skills. They kind of got different bags. I'm very, very interested to see how they handle that. And Nussmeier also has been looking very sharp. Yeah, there's no defense. Shout out Aaron Anderson getting another look here in the pay dirt. But he's been looking phenomenal. I haven't seen too many bad passes. I've liked the way he's led. I've liked everything I've seen so far from him. And I'll be honest, A.J. Swann, same thing. He can get a ball out of there. Has he had rough moments? Has he missed the mark at times? Yes, but it happens. You're learning a new scheme. You're kind of in a situation where there's going to be growing pains. I haven't seen too many. I think A.J. Swann will probably wind up finishing things out as their backup. I know when I say that, everybody's worried about Rickie Collins transferring, but at the end of the day, that's unfortunate. That's a casualty. That's a part of damage control of a roster of college football teams in this era. But you got to make the best call. You got to put the best one out there. Look at this rocket to Kyle Parker again. Two things. One, Kyle Parker's going to have to be used in the starting scheme system because he's out here performing with the twos, as well as Caleb Jackson. But second thing, if A.J. Swann's out here getting this many consistent QB2 reps, it's very hard to see it tipping in Rickie Collins' favor. Is Rickie talented? Yes. Can Rickie develop? Yes. I think that as of right now, though, they're a little worried about throwing him out there with that experience, and it makes sense. Look at Xavier Thomas, although he's been a little bit of a utility position for LSU. You've seen him returning with the special teams alongside Kyle Parker and even Aaron Anderson. I think that, the race between Kyle and Aaron in terms of who's going to get the most reps, it's going to come down to that as well, the special teams implications, I think. But look at Caleb Jackson. I think this is the Caleb Jackson show this year. I think this is the year that he's going to take college football by storm. And you see Rickie Collins here running with the threes. It's Javen Nicholas. He's been also in the returning group with those three receivers we just mentioned on special teams. And he's been getting utilized a lot. There's going to be another play coming down here where Javen gets completely right here seat with a heat missile. A heater down the sideline at Javen. I mean, that's pretty interesting because when you got a guy performing like that, he might not necessarily get those looks this season, but next year, whenever it's his time to step up into the shoes and fill Kyron Lacy's cleats or potentially Chris Hilton or any of those type of guys, you might be able to avoid the transfer portal and look at somebody that you've been developing for a few seasons. So someone like Javen, if he stays the course, hell, even Shelton Sampson, keep staying the course, keep getting developed by these world-class coaches, and I think that LSU is going to put them on the field inevitably. It's only a matter of time before we get to see this team kick off in 2024. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the description to follow us on all social media so you don't miss any more LSU football coverage. Spring games coming up Saturday. We'll have a highlight video. We'll also have a recap video on the field, and we'll continuously put out the content all week long that we captured. This has been the Verdin Verdict. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.